Today's AskReddit post. People with weird obscure jobs. What is your job and how did you get the job? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. I work in a lab where I raise moths. I got it by telling my lab partner that I love bugs and he hooked me up. Is it good pay? It's $10 an hour but it's really good experience on my resume. I was a puppeteer for many years and I actually got that job from an ad in the classifieds. It cracks me up that there is a scene in Being John Malkovich where he tries to find puppeteer in the classifieds and fails. I can't believe it. I remember that movie because at the time I was trying to become a cartoonist or animator and there was no way I was finding anything like that in the classifieds. You actually succeeded. It's amazing that artists ever found work in the pre-internet era. Concrete photographer. I just started this month. I studied geology in college and now my job is to look at concrete using petrographic methods I learned at school and conduct ASTM tests to determine quality of concrete. Very interesting work because concrete is engineered rock and there's a lot more to it than you think. Misread this as concrete photographer. Yours is much more interesting. I literally went over this comment like 3-4 times and didn't know until I saw your comment. You know when you're watching a sports program and you see the little pop graphic in the corner, i.e. a baseball player's stats, or an advertisement for Easy Mag, or stay tuned for Saved by the Bell at 9? ? Yeah, that was me. I updated those graphics and uploaded them to Fox Sports. Since Fox Sports is a 24-hour channel, there's always one guy in the office 24 hours a day. Okay, that's super cool. Do you pre-create all the graphic? How much is done on the fly? I swear, there will be circumstances where a crazy situation happens, and then 10 seconds later there is some super relevant stat that comes up as a graphic. I work in a clinical lab where I get to play with baby sweat for a bit of my day. We are testing for chloride level. Increased chloride in sweat is one of the diagnostic markers for cystic fibrosis. I am a clinical laboratory scientist. Not all clinical labs perform this test but I am lucky enough to work at a lab where we do a couple interesting low volume tests. I cleaned grills for super rich people in Palm Beach. Even got to clean Michael Jordan's at one point. And it was recommended to me from a friend who was in sobriety with me after I got clean. We talking grills as in barbecue, or the other type, like $15. 000 built into an outdoor kitchen grills. My job's not weird. I'm a welder, but what I do isn't very common. I build Virginia-class submarines. I used to work on a lavender farm. It's totally unrelated to my field of study and incredibly difficult in terms of manual labor, but man was it a beautiful place. I tended to the plants, took care of goats, and did processing for the herbs and honey. My grandparents are farmers and so I grew up with mediocre knowledge of field work and beekeeping, and when a friend's mom decided to start a business centered around lavender she asked me to help out for the summer. I'm a potter. Not sure if that fits the bill for weird. I used to be the manager for a museum art school and began taking classes there years ago. Eventually transitioned into being a full-time potter and pottery teacher. You're Potter Harry. I used to cut pictures of wee-wees and hohos off packaging of adult toys. All day every day. I got the job by being able to pass a drug test. The interview boss. Can you pass a drug test me? Yes boss. You sure? Because if you don't pass I won't hire you. Me. I understand boss, if I pay for your piss test and you fail I'll be mad. Me. I haven't smoked in like 3 months, don't worry. Did you keep all the cut off ding dongs to make intercoursey confetti? So not job, but company industry. I was their first marketing person. I worked at a company that specialized in phased array ultrasonic non-destructive testing. The technicians made a poop ton of money and got to work in crazy places like nuclear power plants in Canada and offshore oil rigs in Norway. They even worked on some of the NASA launching pads. I do thermography and we hardly make any money. Confused face. Past job. I worked at a whorehouse. I was the receptionist. Guys would come and did buzz them in after confirmation of their appointment from the intercom. They would enter, check it, get them a water or pop, take payment. Then they'd call the girl from the intercom and they would lead him to the room. It is technically an adult massage parlor. I applied off Craigslist, went for the interview. Only real rule was receptionist cannot become escorts and escorts cannot after chose to be reception. Read this as warehouse and was genuinely intrigued that the warehouse workers would need to buzz in and have their attendance confirmed. Yo, me too. And I started thinking it was a super top secret warehouse or something. Lmao. Diver. When I was 13 I started diving and in the army. I did it, too. So I love my job now as an underwater worker. Ooh, you filthy scuba. I really envy you. Depends. Underwater techs and welders are some of the highest mortality rates there are, out of like all jobs, if I recall correctly. I'm one of 2 employees at a pet crematory. I recently started working in a carrot factory. I stand at a conveyor belt as carrots roll past me and pick out all of the moldy ones. How did I end up in this job, you ask? I decided to do an arts degree and now have no career prospects. In all seriousness though, I work with a lot of migrant workers who work extremely hard doing a job they are accused of coming to this country and stealing. They are lovely people who take a lot of care while dealing with the food products and they deserve all the respect in the world for continuing to work hard during the pandemic. I very nearly had the same job in a pineapple factory. I passed the interview and physical tests. Then they noticed I had kitchen experience and put me in the cafe instead. Then they learned I can't use an industrial coffee machine to save my life. So I got bumped over to the outlet store. I still met a lot of the process workers, many of whom were from the Philippines or Indonesia, and were lovely women. Very practical, too. I used to do artificial insemination and embryo transfer on cattle. I got it by being drunk at a party. Coolest job I ever had. Nothing like having your arm up a cow's vagina. My granddad did it for 35 years. It always wins weirdest job conversations for me. My mum knew someone who had a job as a chicken intercoursier. Good money apparently. He appeared on a program on TV years ago. No idea what it was called. Before my time. Where you had to guess what job someone had from them miming it. TV was weird back then, I guess. Official Courtstenographer. I type everything everyone says in court. I was told about it in high school and thought it sounded cool, so I went for it. Took 2 years in college. But I'm nationally certified to type 260 WPM and regularly push above 300 WPM in court. This has always seemed like a really interesting career choice to me. What is the strangest or funniest statement you have ever had to transcribe? I'll answer for a friend of mine. Former college roommate. He works for a company which makes coin and paper money sorting and counting machines. They pay him to stay home and be on call. He's a happy guy. I don't know how he got the job, but he's extremely mechanically inclined and pretty inventive. Though calculus tripped him up and he failed college. When he was in high school, he mounted a model rocket like a hood ornament on his car, controlled by a button on the dash. Push the button and it fires the rocket. Not weird but pretty rare. I'm a professional winemaker. How I got it? I have a university degree in winemaking, viticulture and enology from University of California, Davis. Worked many harvests. Now I run my own winery. It's my dream job and I made it happen. Were you under the legal drinking age when you were getting your degree? I'd imagine that'd be somewhat awkward. Yes. I was earning university credits making wine on campus. There were also department-sanctioned wine tastings in classrooms for underage students. When you handle things in a mature, higher education manner, nothing is awkward at all. I make whiskey. Not super weird, but I'd say on the rarer side of jobs. And it took a poop load of time, luck, skill and perseverance to get where I am. Care to elaborate on your journey? Sounds interesting. In the summer I guard and clean the toilet units, not the toilets, for festivals. I got the job trying to find a cheap way to go to the big festivals, and this organization was looking for volunteers. So all I have to do is stand in front of the units, make sure the ground stays clean, everyone had toilet paper, and clear a block of units so the cleaning team can do their job. Another part of the job is making sure no one dies or passes out in such an unit. You can't imagine how many drunk, often naked, people we need to get out of these units and escort them to the first aid. Wild. Any good stories? I work as a handyman at a hotel. We do everything from maintenance to build mobile bars in funny shapes. We basically just do what the manager wants us to do. So we get funny projects like installing LED and 24/7 music into old broken jukebox machines. I was just lucky a former person quit, so I could take the position. That sounds cool. How's the pay? I work in QC, quality control, for media. In one company they occasionally paid me to watch porn to make sure it was in sync and in good quality for video on demand distribution. In another company I spent years watching movies before release in secure theater-like rooms, to make sure the files are ready for distribution, subtitles and audio in sync, no picture corruptions, stuff like that. I always got to watch the biggest movies of the year in a giant screen weeks before they were released, sometimes months. I got the job by going to film school. That's a sick job. How's the pay? Stagehand. At least I was pre-covered. But anyway, I set up everything from huge concerts and Broadway shows to small private events and interviews. It's a wonderful job and I love the people I work with. As a musician, thank you for your service. Thank you. I appreciate that. We are in service to the art. If you keep making music, we'll keep the lights on. Water quality testing. I go around and collect samples for various testing to ensure the water meets the state standards. I got lucky and met someone who was volunteering at my previous job and she told me to apply. It was not the direction I saw my career going, but it was definitely worth it. I mix fire retardant for fighting wildfires. A lot of people know that airplanes drop retardant on fires but don't think about the millions of dollars of infrastructure that is behind that operation. Everyone who works at my base started by working at the local ski resort. It's a good way to earn enough money in the summer to coast all winter, so we keep the jobs among fellow ski bums. So what is the millions of dollars of infrastructure behind it? I can't picture it. Like a factory operation with tons of chemicals? I work as an air traffic controller. Not weird, but not many of us around. I pretty much fell into it after passing an aptitude and it's just been swell since. Albeit, the classic phrase from strangers, isn't that the job with the most suicides? It might be, but I don't know anyone. It's actually super chill and rewarding when you get it right. We always try get it right, but when you get it super right you're dead pleased. Thanks for what you guys do. I'm a private pilot and have been in some pretty busy airspace, and I am always amazed at how you guys can track so many planes at once, including me puttering around in a C-172. I'm an assistant curator in numismatics. Basically I manage our museum's collection of ancient coins. It's a small museum, which explains why I even have this job, as I'm not a professional numismatist, but we have a pretty sizable collection of mostly Roman coins. But we also have Greek, Hellenistic, Byzantine, medieval European, Chinese, Islamic, and Crusader Kingdom coins. I catalog coins, appraise them, do any research that is required, and help incorporate coins into our exhibits. I also do educational outreach, so I hold workshops for our volunteers and the public. I work with professors in the history and archaeology departments of the university we are attached to in order to help them incorporate numismatics into their curricula. Edit. Forgot to add how I got this job. Basically I came to university and decided to volunteer with the museum because I like history. I did tech support for the first year and then the director asked me if I would like to train in numismatics. I said sure. 5 years later here I am managing the collection, full-time in the summer and part-time during the academic year. I may or may not handle nuclear weapons. That may or may not be pretty badass. It's way less cool than it sounds. It's mostly managing maintenance and security operations, taking no-stop tests, and late night HBO. I used to digitize my local newspaper's old photo negatives for the local archives. I got to see the most amazing snapshots of everyday life, and how my hometown lived through and reacted to major world events, such as the world wars and the rise of technology and innovation. It was a great job and I got to bring the pup to work. For 4 years I was a fake priest in Japan. I first worked for a company making $9,100 for a 15-minute ceremony. When I found out I could cut out the middleman, I started on my own and started making 200 a wedding. I remember one day I had 6 weddings back to back and made 1,200 in a day. This was huge back when I was living in an English teacher salary in Japan. It was so much fun. The brides were more than often super hot and so were many of the guests. I felt like Jesus but kind of dirty. There was one time when the Japanese family was actually Christian and they freaked me out when they actually started singing along with our hymns. I had to remember not to make the Catholic cross gesture cause I was dressed like a Protestant. It really threw me off my game. One time I had to read a scripture in Dutch. I told the organizer that I don't speak Dutch and they told me just to make it up. So I went full Swedish chef and everyone loved it. It was definitely one of the coolest and easiest money jobs I have ever had. I also got huge discounts and free parking at the hotel I worked at along with free bento lunches each day I worked. 10/10 would do it again. So is being married by a foreigner a novelty in Japan like being married by Elvis in Las Vegas? From 1518 I worked at a glorious dog daycare in a huge air-conditioned building with so many dogs. I worked for them 21 years ago, and they're still thriving. I see employees around town wearing the shirts. Pay me to pet dogs? How could you say no? I was a kennel tech at a vet clinic. One of my favorite jobs. I dry rice for farmers in South Central Louisiana. Kinda took a huge stumble onto it. I design water parks. I went to college for graphic design and advertising. In my last year I had to do an internship, so I took one at an aquatic engineering firm to help organize photos. 10 years later I am a project manager and create resort deck and water park programs. Super small organic farmer. Was born into. It's been going for 3 generations counting my cousin's children. Working in college student affairs is kinda weird. What I do. Most go to school for a master's degree to enter the field. But it's a job or profession that no one talks or knows about until they fall into it towards the end of their undergraduate career. It's laughable how many in the field have this story. It was my senior year of undergrad, and I was just a couple months from graduating and work in X field with my degree. My on-campus job supervisor approached me and asked, "You're really good at this. Have you considered working in student affairs as a career?" I said no. "What's that?" They explain it's what they do and what they got their masters in. I said, "You can go to school for a master's and do what we do as a career?" They said yes. So I said, "Son of a bitch, I'm in. Now I'm here." My dad told me of this one time he went to my mom's work Christmas party. She was a banker. As the bankers talked shop and tried to sound impressive, the spouses grew bored and talked among themselves. The guy who drew the biggest crowd was this man who worked at a toilet factory and he did quality control. His job was to flush toilet paper and simulated poop down the toilet. The people at the party, especially the men, were riveted by his descriptions and peppered him with questions while all these upper management bankers looked on with irritation. I have always thought that the most interesting people are those who love their jobs. There is nothing more fun than listening to someone describe their job with utter joy and enthusiasm. I would have been one of the crowd listening to the toilet guy too. LOL. Waiting on that one person that always advertises writing her smut for money in these threads to come. I'm a Chiron operator. I trigger motion graphics on Live TV. I was an art student and also was in stage crew in high school. These things got me jobs backstage in theater, which got me a job in TV doing normal stuff like cameraman and stuff like that. Since I was an art major, I asked if I could do graphics and they let me on the weekends. And my specialty eventually turned to the Chiron, which ingests the graphics that artists make and plays them back through the switcher that controls the news broadcast. It's not technically an art position, but at my job specifically I could make the graphics in After Effects and Photoshop during the day, if I have a computer free, and in the afternoon I play the Chiron. Usually you are one or the other, because Chiron operators don't need art skills. It's just another tech job like audio operator or camera operator or stage manager or whatever. These kinds of jobs are getting rarer because they are being automated. But since I'm also an artist, I get to keep my job because if someone leaves I can take their job. I have been an online community manager for over 20 years. I started in video games and moved into technology companies. I've worked on everything from Star Wars to telecommunications networking equipment and software that help companies move data fast. It started as a hobby. I was a web developer, so very fluent with the web. Started a fan site and grew up at large. Moved on to volunteer for another game company who eventually hired me full-time. TLDR. Turned a hobby into a career. My parents are escape artists and escape consultants. It's quite a niche in the magic world. My dad started as a magician doing birthday parties as a teen. Then got really into escapes. Then became the #1 guy designing and consulting on escapes for famous top magicians. I am a ride mechanic at Disneyland and work on Star Wars: Rise of the Resistance. I got the interview from a longtime friend who is a supervisor of one of the ride areas in California Adventure. A friend's sister is a customer service rep for a company that recovers lost stolen medical equipment on airplanes. As for how she got the job, we have no clue, and she majored in museum studies in college. I transport horse embryos, oocytes, and semen. I got the job because my sister is an equine vet who specializes in reproduction. I'm actually a transponster. That's not even a word. Cameraman for Live PD. Went to film school to make movies, then slowly worked through Ice Road Truckers, Axemen, Boston's Finest, and Night Watch. Found out I have a perfect blend of art and athleticism that can be hard to find. Athleticism. No poop. I have seen a couple of those videos and man, you guys run pretty darn fast. I am studying conservation and restoration of patrimony. I have entered to tombs with archaeologists and I am the one who get the bones out, stabilize them and make them presentable for museums. Also, I worked in a church. I had complete access to all the rooms. So there are like hidden halls and basements, and it's usual to find skeletons or ancient things in there. The atmosphere is quite creepy, humid and dark. My job is to find old, sometimes obscure and sometimes BC titles of abandoned video games, then buy the rights and revive the IP, now venturing into cartoons, comic books and toy lines. Not terribly weird, but definitely unique. I own a handmade business and I make cool things out of felted sheep's wool. It started so I could have extra cash to pay off my nursing school loans. Then I quit my nursing job. Now I am a top 1% seller on Etsy and get to sit around and craft fun and colorful items that I ship all around the world. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.